Welcome, everybody. We're glad you're here because it just shows how much you love the family, you love Alice, and it is great that you're here. I want to just say welcome because we're here to celebrate her life and how she had touched so many other people's lives. I had the opportunity to talk with some of the family members, and they got to share some of the stories. I'm going to share some of those with you here shortly. But my name's Don P. I'm the campus pastor, one of the campus pastors from Mount Pleasant Christian Church, and I just feel fortunate to get to share with you a little bit about her life. But before I do, I always like to go to God's Word and to listen to some of the words of hope, words of comfort that come through God's Word. So I'll be first reading from John chapter 14, verses 1 through 3. And it tells us these words: "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, trust also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I'm going there to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you may also be where I am." Then from Proverbs 31, after I got to hear some of the stories, I thought, listen as I read through here, see if some of these words might capture a little bit of Alice. Proverbs 31, verse 10 says these words: "A wife of noble character who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night, and she provides food for her family." And down in verse 20, then I'll read verse 25, it says, "She opens her arms to the poor, extend her hands to the needy. She is clothed with strength and dignity. And she can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household, and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her." So I said, we're here to celebrate Alice's life. She was born on August 20th of 1933 in Roy, New Mexico. But as you guys know, she was a prayer warrior. She would pray for people, and she might have even prayed for you. A mother of 12. Wow. Departed this world here in Greenwood on March 13th, 2021. Her main purpose in life? To give God glory, to give God praise, to be faithful to the Lord, and to share His love with others. Alice served alongside with her husband, administering the gospel, investing in the lives of many. We kind of saw her as a spiritual mom, in a sense. The world lost a beloved sister, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, better known as Gigi, educator, and nurturer of faith. Alice was the oldest of 4 children, born to Barrett and Maggie. She married Reverend John D. Murray on May 14th, 1951, and she is survived by her brother Barrett and sisters-in-law Rita, Giovanni, Susan, also Marita, and brother-in-law Billy. She is loved greatly and is loved and respected by her 12 children: David and Don, Barbara, Beverly, Dwayne, Charlotte, Gayla, Cynthia, Navila, Connie, Ruth, Eric. Her life will be celebrated by her 36 grandchildren, 39 great-grandchildren, 2 great-great-grandchildren, and I was told 2 buns in the oven as well. What an amazing woman, right? Amen. First of all, 12 kids. I cannot picture the dinner table without a bunch of moving places of dinner and services of food just continuing to make its way around the table. Because there was a amount of meals that Alice had cooked. But it was all accomplished because she was organized. I mean, she had everything scheduled and everything planned and everything prepared, and everyone had their own responsibilities and had some of the things that they had to do. It could be from cleaning around the house, polishing shoes, to maybe some time in the kitchen all the way to bath time. I mean, it was all organized. And I would say Alice, in a sense, had her own bakery, because on Saturday she would make anywhere from 18 to 20 loaves of bread. Wow. Could say John made the bread and butter, but she literally made the bread and butter, right? That everyone actually got to eat. There were vegetables that she would grow in the garden, and of course the kids also knew that was kind of off limits because she wanted to serve them at the dinner table. But I kind of heard that one of the boys actually kind of snuck in there, actually put on one of the sister's shoes, snuck into the garden so he could eat some of those vegetables in there. And of course, one of the sisters got in trouble, actually got spanked. And when she tried to say, I didn't do it, of course, she got spanked again. She said, don't lie, because she didn't put up with lying. And Alice was amazing. She never talked ill of her husband. She was a woman of integrity. And again, she was organized and planned and would execute everything with precision. And on Sunday morning, she wanted to make sure everyone looked good. All the kids. Everyone always would have their clothes nicely starched. Sometimes it was a little itchy. But it was always clean and crisp. All the girls had their hair nicely braided in tight braids, French braid. And if church was open, they were going to be there. Because church was important. But also family devotions were important. And they made their home in the church, and they found it was in a pretty tough neighborhood. As a matter of fact, on each side there was a bar. And in the middle of the night, I mean, they could let out at all different hours. And it wasn't uncommon. You'd hear a little knock at the door. Alice would open the door and invite people in and actually would prepare and cook them a meal. Alice always tried to be fair. Tried. Didn't always maybe succeed. Sometimes, we all mess up as parents, but there were always consequences if you did something wrong. I heard that, I hate to name names, Don. Great name, by the way, because I'm Don. And actually, myself, Don, and there was another gentleman here by the name of David Freeman, so Don and David. We were joking a little bit about that because of the family members. I heard that Don seemed to always try to pass off the blame to his sisters. And you could say one of the times that he was doing a science experiment, I guess it actually went up in smoke. Really? It was you? He's pointing fingers over there. Well, Barbara got the blame who didn't end up doing it. Again, got a spanking for doing it. Not because actually she did it, but because she said she didn't do it. And you're not allowed to lie in the household, right? So I heard the same thing kind of happened with a paint roller on the wall, too. And poor Barbara got her arm measured, and it was an exact measure of her arm, so she got in trouble again. But there was always a little joking, always a little laughter in the family, which is always good, because that's always part of time of family. I was told that one time Alice became a little bit aggravated after she had some health issues and things, and she'd always like to sit up in a chair, like to have her feet down on the floor. But after her sickness and things, she had to kind of lay down, and I guess Barbara kind of went over there and kind of trying to sit right next to her to keep her from getting up and out of bed and things. And finally, Alice just had enough and kind of pinched her in the leg a little bit. It's like, come get out of my way. And of course, didn't, because it was just trying to protect her and trying to keep her healthy. And just a few minutes later, I guess Connie came over and she said, "Can you just put your head on my shoulder?" And did that. And of course, Connie joked a little bit. It's like, I'm Mom's favorite a little bit. So, but you know what? Family tradition is always important. And I know the family's always getting together every couple of years. And if there was something going on, of course, she always had to stay up. She didn't want to miss anything. And family is always important, to stay close, to stay connected, to share stories, to share love, to play games. I always enjoyed playing games, and I guess her favorite game was dominoes, because I think earlier on, cards were a no-no, I think, along with dice playing. But if the family got together, she wanted to be there, because family was so dear to her, and she loved her family. She always valued everyone. She loved each and every one. She always wanted you to know that you were loved, and even more so that Jesus loved you. And she would pray for you, because she was a prayer warrior. And on Saturdays, man, we had to make sure you always made it to the hair appointment. She always had to have the perfect hair, and especially on church on Sunday, I was wearing the high heels and the perfect hair, and getting ready to worship God was always important. Because to her faith in God was so vitally important to her. At this time, Barbara's going to come up and share some of her stories and thoughts, and then we'll be seeing the video after that. Come on.
Hi, thank you everyone so much for coming on behalf of the family. We're just delighted that you're here to celebrate our mother. Our mother was an amazing woman, if you didn't gather that just from the few words that were spoken just now. So our grandparents, Beard Beard and Mae Beard, she was an immigrant from Czechoslovakia, so I believed until today. Then we found out today that she may have been from, where's Charlotte? Hungary, somewhere. So she lied to us all these years about where she was from. I guess the one thing she didn't lie about was that she did get married. She got, but her parents got married in January of 1932, and our mother Alice was born on August 20th in 1933. And a few years later, she was joined with her sister Phoebe, who we all admired and respected because she used to have, where's Lacey? Lacey, she was way before your time, just saying. She used to dye her hair green, blue, purple. That was my Aunt Phoebe. Anyways, we loved her because she had the nicest hair. Of course, us girls weren't allowed to cut our hair, color our hair, or do any of those things, and so we did we were jealous of her. And then a few years later, Barrett was born, and I'm so delighted that Barrett is here today. Barrett is my sister's brother. He's in the back. My cousin was in Texas having a holiday, and he drove all the way to Syracuse, Kansas, picked up my uncle, and they drove all night to get here, and we're so happy. I know Mother and my father would have been so happy. Thank you. It is such a joy to see you both again. Just so you know, that my Uncle Barrett, he was initially known as Little B. Bolivar Bliggers. That's what my grandfather had, a nickname for every single person. My name was Barbed Wire, Hook Up, Loose Hose, Connection, because I peed my pants a lot, apparently. Thank you, Uncle Barrett and Brian, for coming. Then a few years after that, and as a matter of fact, 10 years after my mother had been born, she was joined by Elmer. Now, Elmer was a tease. They used to have this huge vat where they had a windmill and it pumped up the water. And of course, my uncle would get in there and swim with the goldfish. The goldfish, I kid you not, were like this big, like huge monsters. And he'd swim in there, and then he would start saying, Barbara, I'm drowning. Go get Grandma, go get your mom, I'm drowning. Send them, get them. And I would run all the way to the farmhouse and, come, Grandma, come, Mom. Uncle Elmer's dying. And of course, Uncle Elmer they'd just say, oh, let him drown. And I would run back, he won't come. He'd say, you better go get my mom, will spring to die. And I'd run back. But my mother loved Elmer. He was her little brother. And she has such fond memories of him. The family, there's more stories, but I won't bore you with them. We save those for our family reunions every 2 years, and we relive them all one by one. This family eventually homesteaded in Gladstone, New Mexico, where my brothers and sisters fondly came to know was Grandma and Grandpa's house. We loved going there. She had this way of making us feel so welcome. And I think my mother particularly enjoyed it because I think my mother didn't feel like she had to run after all 12 of us, or however many there were at that given time. And when we were on the campgrounds, I call it, in the farmhouse, we just were allowed to roam free. And I know my mother enjoyed those times of refreshing. Mother recalled fondly of her early years. There's one story she just really loved to share, that she was in 6th grade, and she secured a role in an operetta, not because she was popular, but because she was diligent, and she used great expression when she was reading her parts. And the teachers chose her to be the star. And my mother just loved that. And she used to talk about how she really was meant to be a star. But I also recall Mother talking about that dreadful day on December the 7th in 1941 when the news of Pearl Harbor had been attacked. And although she didn't understand what war was, my mother told me that she would often sit and just cry because of the news of this war. And she said that Grandpa used to come and say, "Why are you crying?" And she said she didn't understand war, but she just knew it was really bad. And something gripped her heart with fear. I think it was this tender heart that she really, really became open to something that was amazing that was going to happen to her. Because it was right about that time that my Aunt Phoebe and her began to talk about Jesus. And my mother recalled that there was a discussion about Jesus, and somehow they had picked up, because this was just before they started going to Sunday school, that if you listened to God and you followed God and you obeyed God, that you would go to heaven when you died. And she said that Phoebe and her made this pact that they would make it to heaven. Phoebe vowed that they would hear the words and the voice of God. Now one summer, I don't know how old she was, I wish I did, but one summer, and maybe Barrett, you're going to help me with this later, but Uncle Charlie asked my grandparents if my mother could come to their homestead and if she could help them because they were bringing in the fall harvest, and if she could help his wife cook breakfast, serve them in, cook lunch, serve them in, and then she got to have a little rest, and then she would have to cook supper and serve them in. And apparently my mother was there for about, I think it was 9 days, because she got $1 for every day, and she ended up going home with $9. But during that time after lunch, my mother said there was a Bible that was just sitting there in my uncle's house. And what she did was she took that Bible and began to read it. She didn't understand very much of it, but she began to read it. And my aunt and uncle noticed that that's what she did in the afternoons. So at the end of her 9 days, after she got her $9, my Aunt Ruth, not our Ruth, but my Aunt Ruth, I guess it'd be my Aunt Ruth, but it was her Aunt Ruth. They ordered her a Bible from the Sears and Roebuck Company. And apparently it had her name, Alice Mae Beard, in gold letters across the Bible. And my mother told me it cost exactly $4.98. Now that was a lot of money back then. But her aunt and uncle had no idea what they were investing in. They were investing in a woman that was going to be a godly prayer warrior. Mother continued to read her Bible. And even at one point, and I don't know, Barrett, if you remember this or not, but my mother said that after reading the book of Leviticus, and the Leviticus was, because she started in Genesis and she went through, but she said when she got to Leviticus, and if you've read that any time, you know it's kind of a very difficult and it's a very complex book. As a matter of fact, 4 of my sisters are reading through the book of Leviticus right now together. And one of the things that they talk about sacrifices and all these things. But anyways, my mother was reading it and she didn't understand it, but she thought that she should probably be making sacrifice to the Lord. So she went out into the yard and she said that she pulled together some stones and made an altar to the Lord. But she didn't have a sacrifice. She didn't have anything to put on it. But she knew that from reading Leviticus that there was fire involved in it, and so she poked a stick in it, and she was planning to go back to light it. But the next day, when she went to find her altar that she had developed for the Lord, the stick was missing. And she says that she asked Barrett, what happened to the stick that was in this pile? And Barrett told her that the cows ate it. And she thought that was okay, because maybe the cows would then be the sacrifice. Don't know, just a story Mother told. Mother, of course, was disappointed in many things in her little life, because she wasn't very popular. She said that she didn't think she was very pretty. But she said that she had this huge quest to serve the Lord. And it was very shortly after she'd read Leviticus and made this stone sacrifice to the Lord that her family began to go to Sunday school. And, you know, she doesn't really have a lot of huge memories about Sunday school, but there was some Sunday school teachers, and I guess my grandpa and grandma, they would take the kids to Sunday school. And then at the end of Sunday school, one of the things Mother loved the most about this time in her life was that after church, somebody would say, hey, you want to go over to my dinner at my house? Or they go over to this house for dinner, or they go to this house for dinner. And everybody would just bring whatever they had, and it became kind of a community dinner. My mother loved it. Upon graduation from high school, Mom moved to Pueblo, Colorado, with her Aunt Susie and someone by the name of Uncle Buford. What a name. She got a job, her first job, as a telephone operator, and she began attending a little church where she met a handsome and interesting character named J.D. Murray. He had served in World War II, and he attended a Bible school, and now he was driving an old Ford jalopy. It leaked oil. Lots. And apparently my father used to laugh about it, saying that the city of Denver should be paying him because he was oiling their streets. She thought he was funny. And while the relation started out with a ride in that old jalopy, it was only 2 weeks later that he asked my mother what she was doing the next day. My mother said that she was off and would not be working. And so, and he figured out they got married, eh? So my dad said, well, why don't we, he had apparently a cousin and his wife in the back seat. He said, well, why don't we just go and get married? They can be our witnesses. Some proposal. My dad was not very romantic, as you can kind of see. He did forget anniversaries and things like that, but he knew what he wanted, and I will tell you this, he knew that no other woman in the world would be able to live with him like my mother did. My mother was amazing, just saying. And so they started out, they went, and the following day, one thing my dad got right was you have to go to the father and ask for the hand in marriage, and they drove all the way to Gladstone, New Mexico, and my mother recalls being so nervous as to what her dad would say when she found out that she wanted to get married after knowing this ex-soldier and this guy that had an old jalopy. What would he say if she wanted to marry him after knowing him only 2 weeks? So she said that there was some kind of a social event. I can't remember what it was, and maybe someone can fill me in later, but there was some kind of social event, and my mom and dad had gone with grandpa and grandma, and at some point my dad said, hey, I'd like to marry your daughter, and my grandpa, apparently, according to my mother, said in a very loud voice, so everyone could hear, said, I don't care. I don't have to live with her or you. And so, that was that. And that paved the way for my mother to become married at 18 years of age. She became a pastor's wife for the next 50 years, and although it may be difficult to believe, she and Dad wanted to start a family right away. They both wanted children. Probably my dad more than my mom, now that I think about it. I'm pretty sure that's the way it was. But anyways, he wanted babies, and he wanted them fast. And when my mother hadn't produced him 1 year later, they went to an adoption agency. And at the adoption agency, they told her their desire to have children and how important it was to them. And when the person who was interviewing them asked how long they'd been married, they'd only been married a year, and she said, well, I'm going to turn down your application. You got to give your wife some time. And you know the rest of the story. It was very shortly thereafter that my mother became pregnant. And on August the 11th, 1953, John David was born, who, according to my mother, in her last days when she had no filter, David was her favorite son. She always made us feel like we were her favorite. In fact, one of my sisters never realized that she wasn't really her favorite, because what she would do is my mother would say, "Oh, Galia, you're my favorite girl named Galia." And Galia was, "Oh, I'm the favorite." And we go, "Galia." She says that to everybody. "Listen, oh, you're my favorite girl named Connie. Oh, you're my favorite boy named Eric. Oh, you're my favorite girl named Barbara." And so all of a sudden, Galia's eyes were open and she heard Mom say to the next person, "Oh, you're my favorite girl named Novalie." Galia was shocked, but my mother wanted everyone to feel that they were special and favorite. But now we know the truth. David was the favorite. Honestly. If she only knew how many glasses he broke over my head in those years. But anyway, in quick succession, another 11 children would be born. It seemed like Mother was pregnant every year of her life. In fact, we did count it up one time, and it was incredible how much pregnant time she had. But one of the things I've often thought about is the reason they had 12 kids is no matter where they went in the ministry, and they did move from quite a bit, is that they had a full congregation wherever they went. There was someone to sing, and someone to testify, and someone to play the piano, and someone to dance. Well, we didn't dance much, but hey, whatever. My mother, of course, did not have the easiest life, but as many would say, and I have heard my mom say, she had the most rewarding and fulfilling life that anyone could have had. And my mother, from time to time, when I would say, you know, what would you change if you could change something? And she'd always say, "I have no regrets." Wow. I have a few myself. Our family moved many times across the country where Dad would start new churches that required a mother to settle in. And then she would need to pack up again. It could not have been easy on my mother, especially tracing around the country with a bunch of kids. But each move brought its own challenges. And given that there was probably a new baby born, there was probably diapers that were associated, and bottles, and, well, she breastfed a lot too, every year. That in itself would be a challenge 12 times, my goodness. And you know, our churches, the churches that my dad pastored, were never really financially stable. They were small churches. Dad's ministry was very much to start a church, not to go into a church and continue working with an established church. He went from town to town starting them. And so, in spite of this, I will tell you that my mother, I do not recall her, and none of us do, her complaining about her lot in life or the hardships that she faced. She was content. I'm not saying that she didn't feel them inside, because I did find out later after my dad had died, there were times where she struggled. But she never let us know about the struggles while we were growing up and while my father was still alive. She supported my dad in his ministry. She balanced home and church life. And we never missed a service 3-4 times a week. And if we were sick, we still went. We sat in the back pew with a blanket on us, but we went to church. I was thinking about this last night as I lay in bed. I wonder how they would have handled the pandemic. It's been said that behind every great man is a great woman, and every great woman leaves a great legacy for those who come after her. Mother was a great woman, and we, her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, and her great-great-grandchildren, and those who will follow will likely never measure up to the woman that we get to call Mother. Mother indeed left a legacy, and we will treasure and respect this great woman of God. But I want to tell you a few little things. Mother was progressive. She was a woman's liver before there was such thing as a woman's liver. She decided that she was going to keep her maiden name, and that at a time when it was completely unheard of. She signed her name not Alice Murray, but Alice Beard Murray. That's how she signed our sick notes. That's how she signed everything. She wanted to make sure that she maintained her independence, and she wanted her family history and legacy to be a part of who we were. In looking through some of her last thoughts, she had multiple last thoughts, but one of her earliest last thoughts, which was penned just after my father passed away 20 years ago, she had wanted to make sure that both men and women participated in her funeral. My mother wanted all of us girls in particular, she wanted all of us to get a good education and to do well. But most importantly, she wanted all of us girls to make sure that we went to school, finished school, and we got a career. Now that was not my dad's thinking on any level, but my mother would always say to me, "Go, baby." Yeah, Mom. Mother was a simple homemaker. She stayed at home to cook. She cleaned. She changed new baby's diapers. She washed the clothes in the wringer washing machine. She hung them out to dry, whether or not it was winter or summer. Didn't matter. Sometimes they came in like boards. Mother stayed awake at night making a list of how she was going to organize our days, and quite often she would have that list on the kitchen table. Dawn would be doing the shoes, polishing shoes, and Barb would be doing the mending on the socks or something. She made those lists. She organized her days, and then she oversaw that every task was completed. Not the way we wanted to, but the way she said it had to be completed. And if we didn't complete it the first time, you can be sure that we went back and we did complete it the second time or the third time. And if we so chose the fourth time, it might have been with a little extra special padding required. Mother made sure. My mother oversaw the constant barrage of regular church activities, special services, revivals, prayer meetings. She wrote and produced Christmas plays, Easter skits. She played the piano at every service. 4 times a week, she chose congregational songs. She taught Sunday school. She led youth programs. She conducted full vacation Bible schools. She made sick calls. She went to weddings and funerals, and she was the principal of a Christian school. She ordered curriculum. She cleaned the school. She cleaned the church. She met with parents. She encouraged students. She invested in lives of those in our church and on the street and those that had nothing, and made sure that all of us children were ready for church in time. Clean clothes, polished shoes, ironed, starched, tight French braids. And wouldn't come out until the next morning, and then your hair came out like ripples. She could get paid big bucks.